This is Brother Boyd from the Israel of God, coming to you dealing this week with the second leg of Black history told by the prophets. Black history told by the prophets. This is part 2, slavery. You know, when the Lord brought Israel out of Egypt and took them into the wilderness, he gave Israel his terms. Let Israel know, if you do well, I'm going to bless you. If you do not so well or you sin against me, I am going to put a curse on you. And we're going to read this to show you that the Lord had already told us what he was going to do to us before he did it. Now let's go on to 28th chapter of Deuteronomy, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. 28th chapter of Deuteronomy and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth.
Now, first thing he did, that was a great big statement, sisters and brothers. If he said, if you keep all my commandments, which I command you this day, I'm going to set you on high above all the nations of the earth. That's a great big position. Go ahead and read.
And all these blessings shall come on thee, and overtake thee.
Go ahead.
If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
Go ahead.
Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field.
You're going to be blessed in the city, blessed in the field. Go ahead and read.
Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and of the fruit of thy ground, and of the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep.
And your children are going to be blessed, and all of your herds are going to be blessed. Everything you do is going to be blessed. And look what else he said he's going to do. Skip down to verse 12 and go ahead.
The Lord shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand, and thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow.
So he's going to pour his blessing down, and he's going to bless all the work of our hand, and we are going to be the financiers of the whole world. We're going to lend to many nations, but ain't nobody we ain't going to have to borrow nothing from nobody. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail.
And he's going to make us the head and not the tail. Go ahead.
And thou shalt be above only.
That's a big position. You shall be above only. So no matter what happened, if you're involved in it, you are the top dog. Go ahead and read.
And thou shalt not be beneath. If thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them.
That is, you do all that I command you this day, because the commandments don't change, sisters and brothers. If you do all that I command you this day, you're going to be the top nation on the whole planet. Skip down to verse 15. And go ahead, because now here's the other shoe that's going to drop. If you don't do what I say, go ahead and read.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
But if you don't do what I say, all these curses are going to come upon you and overtake you. Go ahead and read.
Cursed shall thou be in the city, cursed shall thou be in the field.
Go ahead.
Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store, cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, and the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep.
Cursed you shall be in everything you do. I mean, I'm going to put a hand on it. Skip down to verse 25 and let's see what's going to happen. Go ahead and read.
The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
Not migrate, sister and brother. You're going to go out against your enemy, and they're going to smite you, they're going to scatter you, and then you shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. In other words, somebody's going to take you somewhere. Skip down to verse 28 and go ahead.
The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
He said, look, he's going to smite you with blindness and with astonishment, and you're going to grope at noonday. Grope means you don't know where you're going. You're feeling your way, just like you will at midnight. You don't know what to do. All you know is you got a condition on you. You know you're going to protest. That didn't work. You're going to sit in. That didn't work. You're going to shake the fist. That didn't work. No matter what happened, we're going to go and get the education. That's not working either. We don't know what to do. Why? Because the Lord have dropped this great curse on us. Go ahead and read.
Thou shalt betroth the wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein.
Go ahead.
Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
Look, there's a lot of this happened in slavery. You marry a woman, but the master sleep with her or do whatever he want. He says, this going to happen to you. You're going to build houses, but you ain't going to live in them. You're going to plant crops, but you're not going to reap the proceeds of it. Whole lot of slavery went on, and even with sharecropping, it just didn't work too good with us. He said, because I'm going to bring this upon you if you don't obey me. Skip down to verse 36 and go ahead.
The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And there thou shalt serve other gods, wood and stone.
See, now we don't know nothing about this nation when he brought us over here, so we serving other gods, pagan gods. Go ahead and read.
And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword.
Go ahead.
Among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee.
Now what is astonishment and a byword and a proverb? A thing that's scorned and hated. They're going to all put little pet names on you. Wherever you go, your condition is the same. Whether you're among white nation or black nation, nobody care for you. That is the way it is because the Lord said he is going to do that. Skip down to verse 41 and go ahead.
Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
They used to take your children and they sell them. You couldn't do nothing about it. Go ahead and read.
All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low.
He said, look, I'm going to destroy your land. And that stranger, see, when Israel come out of Egypt, it was a mixed multitude. They were still among them. He said, that stranger, which is among you, going to come up very high, and you going to come down very low. Go ahead.
He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him.
Now, he didn't name a specific person because he letting us know whoever we are among, we're going to be on the bottom rung of the ladder. He's going to lend to you, and you're not going to lend to him. Go ahead and read.
He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
The Lord's reversing this. Go ahead and read.
Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed.
Go ahead.
Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee.
He said, now this is going to come upon you because you wouldn't listen to me. I'm the one that's destroying you. Go ahead and read.
And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
And there shall be a sign upon you for a sign and a wonder, upon your seed forever. What is a sign? A sign points out things, sisters and brothers. And a wonder, because people wonder why this happened to these people. So one of the signs is you're going to go into slavery. All you got to do is look in this entire hemisphere and see who was brought here as slaves. Then you just put your hand on Israel. Whoever it was. If they didn't come as a slave, they're not Israelites. I don't care what their color are, but go ahead and read.
Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things.
He said, I'm going to do this to you, and it's going to be a sign on you, because you did not serve me when you should have served me. Go ahead and read.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee.
He said, now look, being you wouldn't serve me and enjoy the goodness of my blessing, you're going to serve your enemies in what?
The Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
And you're going to serve your enemies in hunger, in nakedness, in cold, and want of all things. And you're going to still have to serve, sister and brother. So you're going to put a yoke on your neck. In other words, you're going to go into bondage. Skip down to verse 64 and go ahead.
And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
And we're doing that. We don't know the gods of Easter and the God of Christmas. We don't know the God of Sunday. You're going to serve other gods. Go ahead and read.
And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind.
So you ain't going to have no ease among these nations. When you get there, you're going to always be most likely to be killed. You're going to always have the highest unemployment rate. That's when you start working among the nation. You're going to always be afraid of everything. Stop by police, you're going to shake to death because you don't know what's going to happen. The Lord said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give you a trembling heart and a sorrow of mind among these nations. Skip down to verse 6 to 8. Verse 6 to 8 and go ahead.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Now, this Egypt to us is the house of bondage because the Lord said you ain't going to never go back to the nation no more. He going to bring you, but doing this Egypt to us mean the house of bondage. So he's going to take us in the house of bondages by ships all over the world. And what's going to happen when you get there? Go ahead.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
Go ahead.
And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
And once you get there, you're going to be sold as male and female slave, and ain't nobody going to buy you up out of this captivity. Nobody. Now you look in this hemisphere and see who has this happened to. But let's go now to Daniel's the 9th chapter and see whether we fell under the cursing or the blessings. Daniel's 9, and we're going to start reading at verse 9. Daniel's 9 and verse 9. Okay, go ahead.
To the Lord our God belong mercies and forgiveness, though we have rebelled against him.
Go ahead.
Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our God to walk in his ways, which he set before us by his servants, the prophets.
Now, we haven't walked in his ways, so what happened? Go ahead and read.
Yeah, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him.
So now we know what we have, don't we? The curse have been poured upon us, sisters and brothers. And that's what we're under right now, because that's why we're always up against it. That's why the stick is always short on our end, because we're always in trouble. Our children in trouble, and everybody seemed to find a way to take advantage of us. Why? It's because your God did this to you. He said, once you get there, whatever nation you find yourself in, they're going to sell you. And ain't nobody going to give you a break because I have poured a curse upon you. Now let's go into the 80th chapter of Psalms. Psalms, the 80th chapter. Nobody wants to admit it. Everybody, well, you know, we ain't under no curse. I said, you look at yourself and look at all the people around you and tell me that again. Because the Lord is the one that called it, sisters and brothers, and until the Lord lift it, we got to deal with it. 80 and verse 8. Psalms 80, and we're going to start reading at verse 8. Okay, go ahead.
Thou hast brought a vine out of Egypt. Thou hast cast out the heathen and planted it.
Go ahead.
Thou prepared this room before it, and didst cause it to take deep root, and it filled the land.
Now this vine he's talking about is Israel, because Israel is the vineyard of the Lord. So you done brought a vine out of Egypt, and you done planted it, and you have caused it to take root. And you prepared before it. This is the vine. What verse are we?
We just finished 9.
Skip down to verse 12 and let's look at it. Go ahead.
Why hast thou then broken down her hedges, so that all they which pass by the way do pluck her?
Look here. Lord, you brought the vine out of Egypt, which is Israel. You done planted it, and it took root. Now we want to know, why have thou broken down the hedges, so that all which pass by the way do pluck her? I mean, everybody uses it. Go ahead and read.
The boar out of the wood.
Skip down to verse 15 and go ahead.
And the vineyard which thy right hand hath planted, and the branch that thou madest strong for thyself.
So this vineyard you planted and you made strong for yourself, go ahead.
It is burned with fire. It is cut down. They perish at the rebuke of thy countenance.
They perish. Why, Lord, is that happen? This is the question. You brought this vine out. The reason is because this vine refused to keep the commandments and obey God, so the Lord plucked it up. So let's go now and have a look at this, because who plucked it up? The one that planted it. Let's go into Songs of Solomon. Songs of Solomon, and we're going to start at verse 1. Songs of Solomon, verse 1. Because we're going to pursue this, because we need to know who it is that planted this vine in the first place. Verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
The Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine.
Go ahead.
Because of the savor of thy good ointments, thy name is as ointment poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love thee.
So this is a love song between actually Israel and his God, Jesus, in this case. Go ahead and read.
Draw me, we will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than wine. The upright love thee.
Now this is, the upright do love this guy. Look what he said now. Go ahead and read.
I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem. As the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon.
Now you, go ahead.
Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me.
Look, sisters and brothers, you cannot turn black by laying out in the sun. You can only get a deep tan or skin cancer. But he's telling you, I'm black. Who is this that's talking? This is Jesus by the mouth of Solomon, and we're going to show you this. He said, look up on me because I'm black. Go ahead.
My mother's children were angry with me.
My mother's children was angry with me. We're going to come back here and look at this because we got to find out who's doing all this talking that has his mother's children are angry with me, or with him. In other words, his siblings are mad at him. Let's go into Psalm, the 69th chapter. Psalm chapter 69. Psalm 69. And we're going to start reading at verse 6. Psalm chapter 69, and we're going to start reading at verse 6. Okay, go ahead.
Let not them that wait on thee, O Lord God of hosts, be ashamed for my sake. Let not those that seek thee be confounded for my sake, O God of Israel.
Now, this is Jesus talking by the mouth of David, sister and brother, and we're going to show you this. He said, don't let them that wait on you be ashamed for my sake, and them that seek thee, don't let them be confounded for my sake. He didn't say for our sake, he said for his sake, because he is the one that never sinned. Go ahead and read.
Because for thy sake I have borne reproach. Shame hath covered my face. I am become a stranger unto my brethren, and an alien unto my mother's children.
He said, because for thy sake, O Father, I have borne reproach. Shame hath covered my face. I am become a stranger unto my brethren, an alien to my mother's children. In other words, they didn't like him. Go ahead and read.
For the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up.
For the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up.
And the reproaches of them that reproach thee are fallen upon me.
And the reproaches of them that reproach thee are fallen up on me. Now let's go into Romans the 15th chapter and show you who this is that's doing this talking. Romans chapter 15. And we're going to read verses 2 and 3. Romans chapter 15, and we're going to read verses 2 and 3. Okay, read it.
We then that are strong ought to bear, let every one of us please his neighbor for his good to edification. For even Christ pleased not himself, but as it is written, the reproaches of them that reproach thee fell on me.
So now, he quoted what he just read, because that was Jesus talking in Psalm, sister, in the 69th chapter of Psalm, sister and brother. He said, the zeal of thy house have eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproach thee have fallen on me. In other words, the sins that Israel committed, eventually Jesus had to come and die for these sins. So he is the one that said, my mother's children was angry with me. And look what these children did. Let's go back and read the second half of this 6th verse in the Songs of Solomon. We'll start at the top and read it again. Verse 6. Go ahead and read.
Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the other vineyards, but mine own vineyard have I not kept.
No, he said, they made me keeper of other vineyards, but mine own vineyard I have not kept. He said, his mother's children. We just showed that the children that he dealt with was Israelites. Jesus in the flesh was an Israelite. He was alien to them. They didn't want to deal with him. But again, too, they misbehaved so until he couldn't keep them. So he said, they have made me keeper of other vineyard while my own vineyard have gone unkept. So let's find out who is his vineyard. Let's go into Isaiah, the 5th chapter. Isaiah chapter 5. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 1. Go ahead and read.
Now will I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching his vineyard. My well-beloved hath a vineyard in a very fruitful hill.
Go ahead.
And he fenced it, and gathered out the stones thereof, and planted it with the choicest vine.
Go ahead.
And built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a wine press therein.
Uh-huh.
And he looked that it should bring forth grapes, and it brought forth wild grapes.
Now, he gave this vineyard everything that it needed. I mean, good laws, good statutes. He planted the best seed in it. And when he looked for grapes, it brought forth wild grapes. And I didn't plant this, so look what he said. Skip down to verse 5. Verse 5 and go ahead.
And now go to. I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away the hedge thereof.
Go ahead.
And it shall be eaten up. And break down the wall thereof, and it shall be trodden down.
This is the vine that he brought out of Egypt and planted. I'm going to take away the hedge, and it's going to be trodden down. Go ahead and read.
And I will lay it waste. It shall not be pruned nor digged, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it.
In other words, I ain't going to have no favor showed to this vineyard. Why? Go ahead. Who is this vineyard? Go ahead.
For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel.
For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. He planted Israel. Go ahead and read.
And the man of Judah his pleasant plant. And he looked for judgment, but behold oppression.
Go ahead.
For righteousness, but behold a cry.
And he looked to see if any righteousness, any going on, what he saw oppression. And he saw people crying. Israel have totally turned against his God. Skip down to verse 11. Verse 11 and go ahead.
Woe unto them that rise up early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink that continue until night, to wine inflame them. So
now listen to what's happening now. The people's whole life just turned to nothing but party and converting. He said, woe unto them, the people that do this. Go ahead and read.
And the harp and the viol, the tabret and pipe and wine are in their feasts.
Go ahead.
But they regard not the work of the Lord, neither consider the operation of his hands.
Now they all into socialism, they all into party, they all into doing all kind of recreational thing, but ain't nobody considered the operation of the hand of their God. They don't even consider why we are here, why we go under the treatment that we get. Go ahead and read.
Therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge.
Because they have no knowledge. That's why we've gone into captivity. Go ahead.
And their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst.
So now, all the people that are supposed to straighten us and lead us right, our politicians and our ministers, he said, they are famished. In other words, they don't know what to do. They don't know the word of God. They don't know all they have to do is turn to me, and I would have turned to them. Now let's go into Jeremiah, the 12th chapter. Because this people that the Lord chose caused him to turn on them. 12 and start at verse 7. Jeremiah 12 and verse 7. Go ahead and read it.
I have forsaken mine house. I have left mine heritage. I have given the dearly beloved of my soul into the hand of her enemies.
I have forsaken my house, and I left mine heritage, and I have given the dearly beloved of my soul unto our enemies. What enemies? All over the world. Because we get the same treatment system, brother, whether we among Gentiles or whether we among Hamites. Skip down to verse 10 and go ahead.
Many pastors have destroyed my vineyard.
That's how the vineyard got destroyed anyway. Many pastors have destroyed my vineyard. Go ahead and read.
They have trod my portion underfoot. They have made my pleasant portion a desolate wilderness.
So they gave us bad doctrine and led us the wrong way. And we're still just like a desolate wilderness. We have no direction, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 12 and go ahead.
The spoilers are come upon all high places through the wilderness. For the sword of the Lord shall devour from the one end of the land even to the other end of the land. No flesh shall have peace.
Now the Lord said, look, so I'm going to bring the sword upon the whole land. Ain't no flesh going to have peace. In other words, sisters and brothers, whether it's on the righteous or the wicked, when the Lord brings the hammer down, he brings it on everybody. And we're going to show you now. The Lord had 9 tribes taken out by the Assyrians, sisters and brothers. Then the Lord had Judah taken out, which was Benjamin, Levi, and the tribe of Judah taken out by the Babylonians. The Babylonians passes on down to the Medo-Persian. The Medo-Persian passes on down to the Greeks. The Greeks passes on down to the Roman Empire. And what happened? Under the Roman Empire, sisters and brothers, that's when the Lord made the last disbursement of his people, which are Judah, because the 9 tribes had already been gone. So let's go into Luke, the 19th chapter, because Jesus saw what was going to happen to his people that was there. Even in this time, because prophecy had already been put out there. Why? It's because we had already broke the law. We had already come under the curse, so only thing was left was payday. Luke 19 and verse 41. This is when Jesus was walking upon Israel. Go ahead and read.
And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes.
He said, if only you had known the things that belong to your peace and had done the right thing, it would have been straight. He said, but now they hid from your eyes. Go ahead and read.
For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee in on every side.
So the day's going to come when your enemy's going to put a trench around you, and going to keep you in on every side and do what?
And shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation.
He said, this is going to happen to you because you knew it was not the time of your visitation. When did this happen? This happened in 70 AD, sisters and brothers. The people, after Jesus had died, then in 70 AD, Jerusalem was rebelling, and what happened? The Romans dealt with them. We're going to deal with this book, Atlas of the Bible, page 201 and 202. Go ahead and read.
In 68, the Roman commander launched a methodical campaign to isolate Jerusalem. The overthrow and suicide of the Emperor Nero brought operations in Judea to a temporary halt as Vespasian prudently withdrew to test the imperial winds.
Now, Vespasian was the one that was assigned to take Jerusalem down, but while he was taking them down, Nero died. Now, he wanted to go back and see if he could become emperor. Go ahead and read.
Eventually, he himself was declared emperor. Sailing for Rome in the spring of 70, he left his capable son Titus in charge of the campaign against Jerusalem.
So when he went back to become emperor, he left Titus, a Roman general, in charge, his son. Go ahead and read.
The walls enclosing the temple in the upper and lower cities were the most formidable barrier of all. Postponing on an all-out assault, Titus turned to starvation tactics.
Go ahead.
A certain amount of food had been smuggled into the city almost nightly during the siege, but now the Romans sealed off Jerusalem completely with a wall of their own, made of earth and some 5 miles in circumference. From the outset of the siege, those attempting to get through the encircling lines had been caught and crucified. Sometimes the daily executions reached 500. The crosses were never bare.
Look, the Lord told, when the Romans were jumping Israel, the people were sneaking food in the city and sneaking food out of the city. But what did the Romans do? What Jesus said, they cast a trench around them. They put a levee around them, and they couldn't get out or get in. Everybody that was going out was caught and crucified. Everybody that was coming in was caught and crucified. They was crucified up to 500 Jews a day. Go ahead and read.
Inside the city, starvation and disease claimed a mounting toll. Bodies filled the streets and were stacked in houses. Thousands of corpses were thrown from the walls into the valleys below. The surviving rebels made a last-ditch stand within Herod's palace. The battering rams resumed their rhythmic work. When the legionnaires at last broke into this refuge, they found only corpses. Herod's palace and the rest of the upper city were put to the torch. Jerusalem was a city of the dead.
Now, this happened in 7 AD, sisters and brothers. All that he didn't kill, he put into captivity. But don't you know, Jesus warned them, even when he told them what was going to happen, he warned them, so they still could have escaped. But let's see what happened. Let's go into Luke, the 21st chapter, and start reading at verse 20. Luke 21 and 20. Go ahead and read.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in countries enter thereinto.
Now he said, look, now when you see Jerusalem surrounded, that's by the Roman army, know that the destruction is near. So now, if you're in the city, get out. If you're out the city, don't come in. Go ahead and read.
For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days.
Go ahead.
For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people.
There's going to be great distress upon the land, and wrath upon this people, upon Jerusalem. Go ahead and read.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
And they're going to fall by the edge of the sword.
And shall be led away captive into all nations.
Led captive into all nations. Go ahead.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
In other words, Jerusalem is going to be trodden down by somebody else until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. What is the time of the Gentile? That is the time that God gave the Gentiles to rule, sisters and brothers. And the Gentiles are ruling right now all over the world. The people that we call white people. Now let's look at this book of Obadiah. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Obadiah, verse 1. Because the land is not just sitting over there empty and nobody in it. Somebody is in it. And it's up there, and we're going to see who that somebody is. Verse 1, go ahead.
The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord God concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle.
So this is concerning Edom, ain't it? The one that took over, our twin brother, Esau. He said, send an ambassador among the nations, and said, let them rise up against her in battle. Go ahead and read.
Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised.
Just like they call us a minority, they are also a minority. Even though they swing a lot of power, sisters and brothers. He said, I made you small among the nations, and you are greatly despised. Why is that? Skip down to verse 10. And go ahead.
For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever.
Now, because of what you've done to us, shame going to cover you, and the Lord said, I'm going to cut you off forever. Go ahead and read.
And the day that thou stoodest on the other side, and the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was as one of them.
So look, Esau, when your brother was captive and scattered, and the people coming in and started to lay claim and take over their property, you was just like them. You was one of them. Go ahead and read.
But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother and the day that he became a stranger.
Go ahead.
Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah and the day of their destruction. Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity.
He said you shouldn't have entered into the gate because they went in there and laid hands on their substance. Go ahead and read.
Yeah, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity.
Go ahead.
Nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Neither shouldest thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress.
So he got a whole lot against Esau. He said when he fell, you shouldn't have went into his gates. You shouldn't have laid the hands on his substance. You shouldn't have stood in the escape passages and caught those that escaped and delivered them back up to the Romans. So take them with you. Because Esau had something on his mind. He had dibs on the property, and he didn't want nobody around looking like somebody else. So now, when some of the people that was released by the Persians went back to Jerusalem, let's see who they ran into. Atlas, page 150. Go ahead and read. This is a history book. Go ahead.
To the east, in what had been Edom, people from northwest Arabia were establishing themselves, later known as Nabateans. The heyday of these people would come later, but already they were driving the Edomites, later known as Idumeans, into the Negab and what had been southern Judah. Settling in the desert south of Beersheba, the Edomites establishing themselves in the relatively lush tableland and hills around Hebron, which became one of their chief cities.
So now, when Jerusalem was taken, when the Titus took the Jews out, sisters and brothers, then the Edomites came in up into southern Jerusalem, and they started to occupy southern Jerusalem. Like before they came, Judah was here, and Edom was way down at the bottom of the Dead Sea. But after a while, what happened? When they came into southern Jerusalem, they was there. Even while Israel was there, they just hadn't named the name. Down there, Edom. but they were still there. So let's see what happened. Let's read some more history. Go ahead and read. Atlas, page 160, 148 rather. Atlas, page 148. Go ahead.
At some point, but no later than 522, a second group of Babylonian Jews came to Jerusalem and then settled each to his own town. The list of these towns in Ezra 2 through 30, verses 2 through 35, and Nehemiah chapter 7, verse 6 through 38 indicate that the returning Jews established themselves in an area roughly 40 miles east to west by 30 miles north to south in the hill country of Judah.
So when some more came from Persia, they scattered all over the place, and they started to take up old residence. This is before they were scattered in 7 AD, and let's see what happened. Go ahead and read.
On the east, they extended into the Jordan Valley around Jericho, while to the west, they penetrated the coastal plain, settling in Lod and Ono. To the north, they reached beyond the old border of Judah to Bethel. In the south, they had the strategic site of Beth-zur, but were cut off from Hebron, which was in the hands of the Edomites.
So now, the Edomites had taken over southern Jerusalem, sisters and brothers. So when the Jews tried to go back down to southern Jerusalem around Hebron and Negab, they couldn't because the Edomites was there. Let's go into Atlas, page 60. Page 60. We're doing history now. Atlas, page 60.
160.
Okay, go ahead.
In 139, however, Antiochus VII, who would prove to be the last strong Seleucid king, attempted to reassert his rights in certain Judean cities. The aged Simon dispatched the sons Judah and John Hyrcanus to meet the threat, and their army defeated the Syrians at Kidron.
Now, here's the Maccabees. When the Syrians tried to reestablish themselves, this is before 7 AD, the Maccabees, Judah, and sent his son, and they beat the Syrians. Go ahead and read.
Forewarned that he, too, was marked for assassination, John Hyrcanus hastened to secure Jerusalem, where he became high priest by hereditary rights. By 125, Hyrcanus had annexed part of Samaria and all of Idumea. The conquest of Idumea meant that the easy southern approaches to the hill country of Judea, which in the Seleucids had used repeatedly, were secure.
Now, Hyrcanus went out and he captured Idumea, which was in the southern part of Jerusalem, sisters and brothers. And once he secured, he did something else. Go ahead and read.
The people in these territories were forced to accept Judaism as a means of ensuring their loyalty.
Now, what did he do to make sure they was loyal and wouldn't let the Syrians attack him from the south? They forced them to be converted to Judaism. Go ahead and read.
Among the converted were the ancestors of the future king of Judea, Herod the Great.
So even Herod the Great, he was an Idumean or an Edomite. He was. So his forefather was converted, and so they carried that conversion down through the generation. That's why they became Jews. It's not Israelite, it's all Jew. That's all you hear now. Because they were converted to Judaism. Because Judaism is not represent a people, it represents a religion. So now, when Herod, that's why when the Romans needed somebody, this was all before 7 AD, sister and brother, when the Romans needed somebody to put over Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was rebelling all the time, they set up their own king, King Herod. And let's see what this King Herod, which the Romans set up, let's see about him. Read something on him. Go ahead and read.
Herod the Great.
Herod the Great.
Rome needed a shrewd and capable agent in Palestine, and in Herod the Great, they felt they had found such a man. Young, ambitious, and brutal when necessary.
Go ahead.
Herod was not a true Jew, but an Idumean.
He was not a true Jew, but an Idumean. Why? Because he was a converted Jew. Because his fathers had been converted. Go ahead and read.
Whose forefathers had been forced to convert to Judaism a century before. He had first come to Rome's attention when, as governor of Galilee, he quickly put down a minor Jewish rebellion in 47 BC.
Go ahead.
7 years later, when civil war disrupted the country, Herod fled to Rome and persuaded the Romans to name him king of Palestine in order to restore peace.
Go ahead.
During his long reign, which lasted until his death in 4 BC, Herod kept an uneasy peace by dealing ruthlessly with suspected rivals and troublemakers. He systematically killed off all living claimants to the Hasmonean kingship, including his young brother-in-law, the high priest Aristobulus.
Now look, to the Hasmonean kingship. Hasmonean, that was Israel. That was Judah, real Jew. But being that they made him king and he was a converted Jew, they made him king anyway. So anybody that would come against him, he killed him. It's all that simple. Kill his mother-in-law. Kill his brother-in-law, which was a real Israelite. Go ahead and read.
He even ordered the execution of his favorite wife, Miriam, and her mother because he believed they were plotting against him.
Go ahead.
Shortly before his death, he had 3 of his own sons killed because of rumors that they had designs on his throne. It is easy to imagine such a man ordering the massacre of all male infants in Bethlehem for no better reason than a vague rumor that one had been born king of the Jews.
So that's what happened, sisters and brothers. That's what happened. That's why Herod tried to kill Jesus, because they said he was going to be born king of Jews. He said, wait, the Romans have made me king. I done killed off everybody that tried to take my throne. I'm going to kill him too. But who was Herod? He was an Edomite, an Idumean. And he was converted, not born. Because Judaism is a religion, sisters and brothers. Now let's see what happened in 70 AD. Because you got Herod, got Idumea here inhabiting southern Jerusalem, and they have named it Idumea. So they moved Judea up higher. But still, this is supposed to be Jerusalem right here. But what happened now? When in 70 AD, when Titus scattered Israel and took us out of the land. Let's go on the World Scope Encyclopedia, Volume 4. Okay, read it.
Edom, meaning red, the name given to Esau on account of the red pottage secured by him from his brother Jacob.
Go ahead.
The name was also given to the country settled by Esau, having been previously known as Mount Seir. Later, the Edomites ravaged the southern borders of Palestine and were denounced with considerable vehemence by some of the prophets of Israel.
Go ahead.
After the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD.
After the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, go ahead and read.
The name of Edom.
The name of Edom.
Or Idumea. Disappeared from geography.
Disappeared from geography. Sisters and brothers, this is what went on. So now, we're going to look at these maps and show you what happened. Now, how do you hide a whole people? How do you hide, sisters and brothers? You hide them by changing the name. And I want you to see this name here, which is in southern Jerusalem, which is Idumea, right here. But what do? They changed the name back to Judah, like it was originally, back to Judah. And the whole world said, wait a minute now, the Jews are back home. And from that day unto this one, everybody have said that the people in Jerusalem are the real Jews. No, they are the converted Jews. But there are people that making a claim that is untrue. And the Lord even saw this, and he had it written. Let's go into Revelation, the 2nd chapter. Revelation chapter 2. And we're going to read one verse, verse 9. Go ahead.
I know thy works, in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
He didn't say which say they are Israelites, he said they are Jews, because they call themselves Jews because they are converted. They say they are Jews and are not. Skip down, let's go to Revelation, the 3rd chapter, and read verse 9. 3 and 9. Go ahead.
Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee.
Now the Lord is telling real Israelites now. I know about the people that say they are you and are not, but do lie. He said, I'm going to make them come and worship before you. But that's just once the Lord come back, not a day before, sisters and brothers. I don't want no foolish Israelites running out trying to make somebody worship. Plus, I'm not interested in that. But let me show you what these new converts now. Now let's look at what these converts are saying now. Let's go into Ezekiel 11 chapter and read verses 14 and 15. Ezekiel 11 and verses 14 and 15. Go ahead.
Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, thy brethren, even thy brethren, the men of thy kindred, and all the house of Israel, holy are they unto whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem have said, Get ye far from the Lord, unto us is this land given in possession.
He said, now look, son of man, so listen what they're saying about us. All your people, Israel, the whole house of Israel, the inhabitants of the land, those are the people that's inhabited now, told us, get thee far from the land, because the Lord has given it to us in possession. In other words, this don't belong to y'all no more. It is ours. Now let's go into Ezekiel, the 36th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Ezekiel 36 and verse 1. And look what the Lord has said about these people. Go ahead and read.
Also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, Ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord.
Go ahead.
Thus saith the Lord God, because the enemy hath said against you, Aha, even in ancient high places are ours in possession.
He says, now look, I want you to prophesy to the land, because the enemies that are against you have said, Aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Hey, this ancient land belonged to us. Skip down to verse 5 and read it.
Therefore, thus saith the Lord God.
Go ahead.
Surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen.
Go ahead.
And against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart.
He said, I've spoken against these people that have appointed my land into their hand. Go ahead and read.
With despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey.
He said, look, I want to prophesy against these people that have appointed my land in their hand. I'm going to let you know, sisters and brothers, that they are squarely in possession of the land of Israel. Not the true physical and born Israelites, but the convertees to Judaism. They're the ones that's dealing with the land. Now look what the Lord is saying to his people here in Isaiah, the 1st chapter. And we're looking at it and don't know it. We don't even care. We don't even have a clue of what's going on. Isaiah chapter 1, and let's start at verse 2. Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 2. Okay, read it.
Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth. For the Lord hath spoken, I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me.
And that's why he's gone. We rebelled against him because we wouldn't keep this law. Go ahead and read.
The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib.
Go ahead.
But Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider.
Look, the ox know who owned him, and the ass know where he live at. So, but my people don't have a clue. We don't know. We think we from Mississippi somewhere. And if you say, well, get off the continent. We from Africa. Africa is a big continent. What part of it? Even that what was called, the Middle East was called at one time the land of Ham. So why is it? So my people are not as smart as the ass or the ox. They don't know where they belong. Skip down to verse 7 and look what it says. Go ahead and read.
Your country is desolate.
Your country is desolate.
Your cities are burned with fire.
Your cities are burned with fire.
Your land, strangers devour in your presence.
And strangers are in your land and devoured in your presence. Go ahead and read.
And it is desolate as overthrown by strangers.
So somebody else is in your house. Somebody else is in your house, sisters and brothers. This is what we know. We don't care. We don't even think about it. You know why? Because we're all busy trying to live whatever dream that the strangers have put before us, and ain't nobody going with our God. But the Lord told you, he's going to reverse this thing. Let's go into Joel, the 3rd chapter, because he have a message for all them that did end up doing something to his people. Joel chapter 3, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Joel 3 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
For behold, in those days and at that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat.
That's the day going to come when I'm going to reverse the captivity of my people. I'm going to bring all the nations down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Go ahead and read.
And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
And when the Lord says he's going to plead, he don't mean he's going to plead with you. He said his plead is he's going to do some killing. And he said, for these people who are scattered my people among the nation, and they have divided my land. Go ahead and read.
And they have cast lots for my people.
They have bidded for my people.
And have given a boy for an harlot.
And given a boy for a harlot.
And sold a girl for wine, that they might drink.
So in other words, you was a medium of exchange. A man wanted to deal with a lady of the night, no money, take this boy. If he wants some wine, take this girl. Skip down to verse 6 and go ahead.
The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, and that ye might remove them far from their border.
So he has sold us to the Greeks, the Gentiles, and all of them. They remove us far from our borders. And sisters and brothers, America is a long ways from Jerusalem. But he's done that. And once we got there, we have been woefully set upon by these nations. And let's look at what God called us now. Let's go into Zechariah, the 11th chapter. Zechariah, the 11th chapter. And we're going to read verses 4 and 5. Go ahead.
Thus said the Lord, my God, feed the flock of the slaughter.
That's what he called us now, the flock of the slaughter. We getting killed by every means necessary or unnecessary. We're killing ourselves. Police killing us. I mean, everybody takes the opportunity to kill us. So we are named the flock of the slaughter. Go ahead and read.
Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty.
Whose possessors kill us and now nobody feel guilty. Go ahead.
And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not.
And the people that sold us, that said, blessed be God, because we are rich, and say our own shepherds, which are ministers, they don't pity us, because they refuse to teach us the truth. And look what else has happened to us. Let's go into Isaiah, the 42nd chapter. I'm just laying it out in front of you, sisters and brothers, parts of this slavery, and you just look around and see if this has happened, find out who this happened to. And whoever it's happened to, you have put your hand on the children of Israel, because in Deuteronomy the 28th chapter, he says, shall be a sign and a wonder. A sign identified. Zechariah, 11th chapter, Isaiah 42, rather, and we're going to start reading at verse 18. Isaiah 42 and verse 18. Okay, go ahead.
Hear ye deaf and look ye blind, that ye may see.
Go ahead.
Who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I sent?
Who is this servant? This messenger is supposed to be Israel. We're supposed to be the chosen priest of God, but we are blinder than everybody. Go ahead and read.
Who is blind is he that is perfect.
That's what we think we are. Go ahead.
And blind is the Lord's servant.
Go ahead.
Seeing many things, but thou observest not. Opening the ears, but he heareth not.
Look, you see a whole lot of things going on, but you ain't paying no attention. You hear a lot of conversation, but you ain't hearing nothing. He said, and look what's happening to you. Skip down to verse 22 and go ahead.
But this is a people robbed and spoiled.
This is a people robbed and spoiled. Everybody come in your communities, get their money and leave. Go ahead.
They are all of them snared and hold. And they are hid in prison houses.
And you're hid in prison houses. Go to the prison and see who is the majority in the prison. Go ahead and read.
They are for a prey and none delivereth. For a spoil and none saith restore.
Ain't nobody said, why are you doing this to these people? Return what you've taken them from. Go ahead and read.
Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come?
That's a big question. Who is it among Israel will listen to what the prophet Isaiah say? Who is it? Who will pay attention? And wonder why we got all the minority on the outside of the majority inside the prison houses. Ain't nobody asked the question. Why is it that they most likely get killed? Person kill us and can beat the rap. We kill us like flies. Nobody cares. Why? Because of the curse. That's why the Lord, this slavery he put on us, because we didn't obey him. But the Lord said, nothing lasts forever. Let's go into Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, and the Lord going to tell you after these curses and blessings that come upon you, what he's going to do. Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Deuteronomy 30 and verse 1. Okay, read.
And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse.
The blessing and the curses, so we know the curses. Go ahead and read.
Which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee.
And you're going to call them to mind among all the nations the Lord hath given. But keep reading. Go ahead.
And thou shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thine heart and with all thy soul.
Go ahead.
That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee.
Then the Lord will turn your captivity, have compassion upon you. Go ahead and read.
And will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered.
And he is going to return and gather thee. He's not going to send another Moses. He's going to return and gather you from all the nations whither he hath scattered you. Skip down to verse 5 and read it.
And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed.
Go ahead.
Thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers.
So the Lord said, after all these curses, I'm going to bring you back, and I'm going to do you better than your fathers was done, because your fathers broke my laws. Now let's go into Matthew, the 24th chapter. Matthew chapter 24. Because it's going to happen when the Lord comes. See, people think that we're going to have another Moses. No, we ain't going to have another Moses. We ain't going no more till Jesus comes. When he comes, he's the one that's going to deliver us, and nobody else. That's why I can't understand why my brothers always ragging on him. Matthew 24 and verse 27. Go ahead.
For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
He's going to come like the lightning. Skip now to verse 27, 29, and go ahead.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days.
Immediately after the tribulation. What tribulation? The great tribulation that the Lord is going to bring on this earth. After the tribulation of those days, go ahead and read.
Shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light.
Go ahead.
And the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
Go ahead.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
So when he come, he going to come after during the war of Armageddon. And what's he going to do when he get here? Verse 31. Go ahead.
And he shall send his angels with a great trumpet, with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
Now, when he come, he going to send his angels. They're going to gather Israel from all over the world, sisters and brothers. Now, let's go into Isaiah, the 11th chapter, and start at verse 1. Isaiah 11 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots.
Go ahead.
And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord.
This rod out of the stem of Jesse is Jesus, sisters and brothers. Go ahead and read.
And shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears.
Go ahead.
But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked.
Now the Lord going to do that when he come. He's going to take this world down by a wall. And what else is going to happen? Go ahead.
And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins.
Go ahead.
The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid.
Go ahead.
And the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them.
Now, all that's going to happen, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 10 and go ahead.
And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, to which shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious.
So even the Gentiles going to seek him. Go ahead and read.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea.
So the Lord going to set his second time to recover his people, sisters and brothers. The first time was in Egypt, sisters and brothers. So now, when the Lord comes, the animals are not going to attack you no more. The wolf going to lie down with the lamb, and the lion is going to eat straw like the ox. I say every year, if Israel is back, then you can prove it by going to your local zoo with a handful of hay and a stake in one hand, go to the lion's cage, throw the stake in the hay in. if the lion eat the straw, Israel is back. But if the lion eat the steak, Israel is still in captivity. Thank you for your time.